Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, January the 27th, 2026. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. I did not go to Kramer's last night. We spent 15 minutes of this show listening to Garrick tell us snowmobile stories, and they were awesome. So you want to get niche, we can do that, but we digress. All right, great show for you today. Kind of turning the page. Lots to have an opinion on, and we're going to talk about recruiting strategy. If you listened to Dave and J-Book talk last week, they talked about how Ohio State, what did we get, 28 recruits in the most recent class? And what would they have done had they known the rules ahead of time? How many would they have taken? It's interesting. We are at a watershed moment in recruiting. And I think you hear some drastic comments where you hear people, oh, no one's going to recruit high school players anymore and stuff. That could not be further from the truth. I think if you look at, there are some obvious outliers, but the nucleus of the teams that win championships, I guess Indiana may change, but Indiana recruited a bunch of those dudes. I guess they'll be the extreme example. Garrick, how do you see this going? How do you think Ohio State's going to approach it? And I guess we can chop it up and decide whether we think that's the right way to go about it.
Sure. So I think what's going to happen, and you're going to see more of in the future, is, like you said, Dan, the 28 signees of last class, I think, is going to be on the high end going forward. I don't think they're going to take that money unless they evaluate their roster and they see the progression or not as much progression of certain players on their roster as they hope, and they know that they might have a heavy transfer portal cycle like they did this cycle where there's more than 30 departures from their roster and they might need to backfill those spots a little bit. But I think what we're going to see in terms of their approach for high school recruiting is, and I struggle to say this because it's an apples and oranges comparison, but I think they're going to take sort of a professional approach to roster building. And by that, all right, so work with me here. I think that your high school kids, Ohio State is going to prioritize 10 to 15 every single year, and these are the guys that are going to be, they can contribute either on day one when they step foot on campus or within their second year.
Draft picks.
Yes, draft picks. Now, picture that draft picks can be signed by literally any team on the planet, and that the best team in the country usually gets the best draft picks. So, again, apples and oranges comparisons here for the professional model. But a guy that we're going to talk about later in the show, DJ Jacobs, he's a guy that Ohio State circled as, all right, that's the prototype type of body that if he steps foot day one on campus, that guy can be a potential starting defensive end for the Ohio State Buckeyes from day one. Chris Henry Jr., last cycle, same type of reasoning. He could possibly be Ohio State's starting wide receiver as a true freshman this year, opposite of Jeremiah Smith. So does that mean they're only going to take 10 to 15 players in high school ranks? No, I don't think so. I think you take those 10 to 15 guys, and I say 10 to 15 because your needs fluctuate from position to positions. Maybe on the years where you have a younger roster, like a bunch of sophomores starting, you wouldn't necessarily need to go up to 15. But and then you backfill with however many you need, maybe between 5, 10, however many you think you need to hit that roster spot of developmental guys that aren't going to cost a whole lot of money, but have a certain tool, whether it's their size, whether it's their motor, whether it's whatever, at whatever position, that you can maybe, all right, well, if we take him and give this guy 2 to 3 years, maybe there's something here. And when I put that out on the boards a little bit ago, a couple weeks ago, they're like, well, what's the point of taking developmental guys if they're going to transfer? And I was like, fair point. But also, you got to fill the roster. And two, if they end up transferring out, I mean, what's the loss, right? Not that they don't want to keep those guys and want to prioritize developing them. But if they transfer out, then, well, you know that you're probably going to miss more than you hit on developmental type guys anyway. So it's the price of paying poker, right? So 10 to 15 draft picks, as Dan likes to call it. And then if you move into free agency, transfer portal.
Boom.
Yes, free agency, transfer portal. And there's not really a set number there. It's more so fill the needs of your roster, right? And look at Ohio State's 16 incoming transfer portal prospects. I would say 14 of those 16 prospects have serious collegiate experience, and they're going to be okay stepping on the field day one. They're either a starter or a major contributor, and of the other two, that's a guy that might be a Ohio State starter a year from now. So that's your free agency. And then obviously the third component to this is prioritizing roster retention, which we know Ohio State has put number 1, 2, and 3 in terms of their team building strategy. So to wrap this up, I think in the past couple of years, you've seen classes where they've tried to pay 85 guys on their roster. And now I think we might move to an era where, and this isn't just Ohio State, I feel like this is going to be for most of college football, at least in terms of the heavy blue blood Power 4 teams, where you pay maybe 50 to 55 guys on a roster, and the back end of your roster is a bunch of developmental types, probably a lot of in-state Ohio talent that you're taking a chance on, hoping blossom into something, and then maybe they can contribute years down the road. But I think that's kind of where we're headed, and quite frankly, after seeing the transfer portal departures, like Fahim Delane's another guy that I thought was a great example. Like, this is a guy that was built into possibly contribute in his second or third year down the road. And Ohio State viewed Terry Moore as a guy that could potentially be a great replacement for Caleb Downs. And Fahim Delane probably didn't want to wait another year. He probably wanted to play in year 2. So those 10 to 15 guys, you got to envision, okay, we envision that this guy either needs 1 year of a redshirt year and then can come in year 2, or this guy's going to be in the 2 deep or 3 deep right away as a freshman. And it's really going to be a challenge for the scouting departments to find guys that can really come on the campus and make an impact right away, because, I mean, Mark can explain this far better than I can. Scouting and in terms of college readiness is a very hard thing to predict, and how they're going to adjust. You factor in the competition level, you factor in the size, how much bigger are they going to get within a couple months on campus when they early enroll, and quite frankly, how mature are they? How ready are they to see an Indiana week 5, right? So all those things are going to come into play, but quite frankly, I think it's the way to go in this era when you factor in there's not an unlimited amount of money. I mean, there's a lot of money available because it's Ohio State and they certainly have a decent amount in their war chest, but there's not an unlimited amount of funds. And I think this is probably what we're going to see going forward, guys. So in terms of class size, I don't think there's a set number, but I think that 10 to 15 range of the high-end guys is going to be pretty safe. And then here's the other thing about the strategy. If they feel that, all right, we might see a mass exodus, and you usually know by November if, all right, this guy's probably going to consider looking elsewhere. We need to upgrade this spot on the roster, and if we upgrade this spot in the transfer portal, then this could upset the room, and we may have to backfill. You can always do what Ohio State did in November and just make pivots just based on senior film evaluation and bring in high school guys and beef up that number if you feel like that's the way you need to go.
All right, Mark, a couple things. One, I think what's very clear is this is going to put a ton of pressure on staff to properly evaluate. If you miss now, just like if you miss in the salary cap, we've talked about this, the easiest way to ruin your NFL team is pay great money to good players. That's how you lose. So I wonder how you feel about the level of need for evaluation. I also wonder if the schools themselves really don't like this, in that I think for Ohio State, yes, you got to pay, but you also get to clear out guys you don't think are going to contribute. So as long as you can backfill that, I think Ohio State should be in good shape. However, I do think it puts for example, Ohio State's championship. See, Caleb Downs is the outlier. That's not usually the type of guy that's transfers. I mean, if you know what I'm saying, that kind of transfer existed forever. If a great coach left, you got a chance at maybe getting one of those players. But in general, I think the guys that Ohio State has built themselves around have been their guys. They've done a better job at retaining dudes than ever. I will say this year was a little bit different, and that there were guys that left that you thought might play. But forgive me if I'm wrong. Is there a guaranteed starter that left?
I don't think so.
Okay. And that is what separates Ohio State to this point from everyone else. And the large part is, yes, they've lost transfers, but guys who are guaranteed to start don't leave Ohio State. I don't know if that's as prevalent everywhere else, but to me, that seems pretty obvious, and they've done a good job of that. I wanted them to keep Aaron Scott. I wanted them to keep Fahim Delane, Mylan Graham and Quincy Porter, sure. But I couldn't guarantee you they were going to play this year. Whereas Devin Sanchez, Jeremiah Smith, those guys are going to play. So
I think
that's the delta right there, maybe. So, Mark, your thoughts, like, as you speak to the assistant coaches and stuff, maybe not at schools like Ohio State, but it seems to me it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on high school recruiting, getting the guys right.
Wow, there's like 6 questions you asked me in there throughout that little.
You're versatile and talented, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, and my brain's going a million miles a minute because I do have data points on all the things you're talking about. Talking to a staff like Ohio State, this is even spreading their resources extremely thin. They have the beefiest staff, the most underlings to pound through and shoot through film, but the portal with all those players, all the positions, and then, like you're saying, you don't want to screw this up. This is now an NFL environment where real money's on the line. Like we brought in a tackle last year that we paid, and it didn't, he didn't really come to fruition. Well, that you don't want to have that type of scenario repeat itself where you're setting money on fire when money is so crucial. There is no salary cap, but there is a cap of what is being donated, and there is a number somewhere that is finite, and whatever that number is for every team, you're up against it. And like anyone else running a budget, you're going to run right up against that number. You're not going to leave $700,000 or $800,000 on the floor. I mean, the thing that made Bengals fans mad for years is when that cap would go up and you look at their salary cap number and you're like, you mean you can spend $127 million and you spent 95? Why not spend the other 26 million and let's load the gun up and go win a Super Bowl?
The NFL leagues or the NBA, they've installed a salary floor for that reason.
Yes.
Like, you've got to spend up to a point once you have revenue sharing, et cetera. Go ahead.
No, and that was going to make that point where, okay, some organizations would say, I'd rather make that 26 million and put it in the owner's pocket than spend it on whatever, a roster. Okay. So in this day and age of a roster limit, you cannot bring in high-priced players that upset the apple cart. And it's pretty common knowledge that the last 3 national championships, 3 teams from the Midwest, senior laden, experienced players, that type of stuff. So spending money right and building this type of organization where you're top heavy with the Jeremiah Smiths, Caleb Downs, you're going to pay the stars. And you have to rely on the evaluations in your own building from practice every day. Is there a kid on our team that's trying to get away that, we're watching him in practice every day. We ain't letting that sucker get out of the building. And you go give him the money. So up against that finite cap, like you're saying, Ohio State said, here are our starters. We're going to prioritize our top 11 and our top couple backups just the way an NFL team would. An NFL team runs into free agency every year where, hey, guys, we're going to have to make a tough decision. Let's rank our roster. Let's look at their cap numbers. And, hey, we're going to let a couple of these guys go. And then the dirt on these players that never gets out to the public is who's showing up for class, whose grades are right, who's coming into the building in the right frame of mind every day, who's got excuses why they were not at a workout or whatever it is. And you kind of filter those guys out where, we're going to be able to build a building full of guys, lockstep with the same mindset. We don't have to keep that straggler that did you go to class today? That guy who's draining our coach because he's constantly checking up on him. So those are the type of things now that are coming into these money decisions where, give that problem to another school. We'll replace him with the kid from UTSA that we know is a starter, productive, shows up every day. On game day, we can see on film, he's there, locked in. That model is coming, and he's not going to cost as much. He's going to be happy as hell to be here. So it stinks when you lose players like Bryce West and Aaron Scott, who you develop an attachment and a love for, but you're replacing with guys that want to be here that are going to be easier to like when they get here. If you share my screen I put up for you, Dan, you brought up a point about how you're building this, and people are saying that high school recruiting is down. They're not taking as many kids out of high school, and that's been like the chant. The portals hurt high school recruiting. I'm here to tell you this year was a record year for the most FBS recruits since I've been doing this since 2013 and keeping track. 162 was the record. We're at 164 and counting at the top here. So year by year, this last class signed more high school guys.
Division one, because that's key.
Only FBS. Yeah. So the max included or whatever, and there's some depth to these classes. But here's what makes sense of this is all these players that are so coveted in college football, they all came from high school. You're not going to get around the fact that you're going to have to take high school players, okay? And with all these, like if it's a game of musical chairs, of 4,000 kids go in the portal and only 3,000 kids sit back down at seats, there's 1,000 more scholarships out there that need to be given to someone, and it's actually going to the high school kids. They're going to more of these young kids that are developmental. I'm trying to read these comments too while I'm talking, but yeah, this high school recruiting is not dead. So you're going to see Ohio State take chances on a lot of 3-star guys. Just what Garrick said. Hey, we're going to get the Jeremiah Smiths, the stars. We're going to pay them. But there's a lot of kids in Ohio, and there were Jim Tressel-like players. If you remember Jim Tressel, he had a lot of kids on the roster that were the captain of their team, 4.0. These try-hard kids that they had some talent, but maybe they weren't at the 6'5". They were 6'2". Or there was some ding on their, personality, or not personality, but their traits or something. But they were quality players, and you'd see senior year here, they pop into the lineup, and there's a nice story. That type of player is now back in play, I feel. So look for that to fill out the roster, and maybe 3 or 4 guys a year you're going to see get a chance. True blue Ohio blood guys that wouldn't leave if they had to. But there's so much to digest with, if you're Mark Pantoni, you said it, Garrick, you're now taking on an NFL type approach. It's not college recruiting anymore. It's not scholarships. The scholarship is an afterthought. And I've said it before, when it used to be scholarship for scholarship, your facilities and your coaches and all that stuff mattered. It's not scholarship for scholarship anymore. It's totally irrelevant, those other things. So we're now playing Moneyball.
See, the thing is, the money flattens out, though, at some point, because I don't think what you're having is now. There's exceptions, but I don't think you're having a case where a guy's going into the market and Team A is offering $1 million, Team B is offering $1 million, Team C is offering $3 million. I don't think it's that. Now, when that happens, Team C is getting the guy. Okay, I'm not disputing that, but I do think what Ohio State has going for it is, when you flatten everything out and the money becomes, routine, and they know they're getting paid, then it does go back to who can get me to the NFL and who's going to win. I don't think that's necessarily going to be a link for the middle tier guy, but the upper tier guys who are getting paid that level, it's like I said before on another show, I don't think we're going to get the second safety. But in the salary cap era, if you have the money to spend, you are getting a safety. That's not, there's only so many guys out there and so many salary slots for, you know what I'm saying? And I realize it's watered out over $1 billion Division I schools compared to the NFL. But there is a certain level at which a guy like, for example, Blaine Bradford, he's not going to Hofstra. He's going to one of a group of X number of schools. And out of those schools, he gets X number of offers. And then he weighs it out. It's still tiered. Go ahead, Mark.
And maybe, I don't know if this is the point you're making, but when you lose Bryce West and Aaron Scott, there was going to be money allocated to give those guys. Well, you know what? Now it's going to all the people in the portal, McEwen and the safety and the Alabama guys. And, okay, it's a salary cap. You lose your backups. You now, you see teams every year, we have $50 million to spend. We have some years you're going to go into free agency, and they're going to say, you know what? We spent it all on our roster. We got deals going with guys. We can't go into free agency this year. And then this year you're going to see a 19-man haul. I think year to year it's different. I think we don't know. I think the Mulligan program will put everybody at ease. Like, as we're talking about this, you might get stressed out and go, oh, my gosh, it's all in our favor. It's all in our advantage. Ohio State will win this every time because they are the 900-pound gorilla in the room that has the money, the sexy place to play, the championship runs, the NFL prospects, we repeat on all these things we know.
I still think Ohio State, and look, It's Bucknuts. Okay, so I get accused of being a homer around here every now and then. No skin, but I still think under the current system, the way I see it now, the two teams that are really in the best shape are Ohio State and LSU. One, their states produce a good number of excellent players, and the guys in those states want to play for those schools more than the other states. I don't care. Anyone tells me. You grew up at Ohio State, they're going to, for the most part, get the Ohio guys. I get Oregon has gotten a few dudes, and there was a time when there was nobody like that. That's not going to be the case. LSU the same way. LSU's also in a great conference, great backing, great professional tradition, but they're going about it differently. So if you look at the rankings, I think Ohio State, the last time I checked, is ranked 4th by 247 in the transfer rankings. LSU is 1st. LSU has taken 40 transfers, 40. Ohio State has taken 16. So it's a different mentality. Now, I realize it's a new coach there, and there's probably an aggressive number. But I don't think you're going to see the massive upheaval at Ohio State that you may see at some of the other schools, because I just don't think that's effective. I get Indiana and Signetti. I got to see them do it for another 2 or 3 years without anybody from Harrisonburg, Virginia on the team. That's James Madison. So let's see if they can keep doing it. My last point is this. I almost think we need to separate quarterbacks from everything else when you're interpreting this, because the fact that Ohio State didn't have to spend all their time and money on going after a quarterback in this cycle, when you go to rank them, if you took a quarterback and spent all your money on that, I get you should be ranked higher for that. But Ohio State developing quarterbacks the way they have has not needed to do that. Now, they did with Will Howard, obviously, so they're 1 for 1. 1 year, 1 championship. That went well. But I just think quarterbacks have to be separated from the whole group. Even 2 years ago, more than 50% of the starters in Division I were transfers. That's really not – I think the transfer thing, I think we're overcorrecting a little bit. And I actually think the teams that get the elite prospects are the ones that are going to – I mean, I'm still married to that. Also, we need to sell subscriptions for recruiting, so I need that to go on slightly. No, but I actually believe that, because I think the guys that determine it are the great players. You know, we got really lucky that Nick Saban retired when he did, because Julian Sand and Caleb Downs are just not normal transfers. I get the Judkins one was a gift from the heavens and stuff. But if you rank defensive transfers of all time, where does Caleb Downs rank?
Yeah.
All time in college football.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not a long window, but how do you not put guys like that in the top? Yeah, he's probably 1 or top 5 for sure. You know, so like,
that's not normal.
If you want to be a jerk and argue him down, yeah, but you're right. Those type of guys, you can't expect that type of transfer portal like to go your way. It's that hard. Like the 3 best players in the whole world show up on your team, and you know that's unique. But you worry about these coaches getting fired. Even if an Ohio State coach moved on, would we lose a couple players of that quality just because they're not sure the new guy who comes in? And it's definitely new. Have we talked about Arthur Smith very much? And you know, where he said it, I think that was on our list of things to do today. I was kind of looking at his numbers over the years.
We can do that. Cam Newton would probably be the number 1 offensive transfer. That's why I use defensive.
According to Cam Newton.
I would agree that Cam Newton's probably number 1.
Look, Cam Newton is an interesting fella. I do think the funniest commercial ever is the one where the little kid tells him he's going to beat him out, and then he gets intimidated on the playground. But saying Notre Dame has been a non-factor on a national television show when they were in the championship within the last year might tweak your credibility just a tad. And the hats don't help.
Yeah. Well, Cam Newton, the college football player, are 2 very, very different things.
Tremendous. Yeah. Let's talk about Art Smith, the offensive coordinator. Mark, you want to talk about that? We have a real treat coming for you with some video coming up. You do not want to transfer out of this podcast. So tell me what you think of Art Smith. We talked about him yesterday. For those of you who don't know, he worked for the Titans forever, played actually college football, was an offensive lineman at North Carolina, attended Georgetown Prep, like both my brothers-in-law, which I did not know. His grandfather started the Huddle House, the Waffle House, basically, and his dad started FedEx. So pretty much probably got a car when he was 16. He's doing quite well, and he was with the Titans for about a decade. Then got a stint as the head coach at Atlanta, and then was the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, and now arrives to be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Mark, the floor is yours on your thoughts.
Yeah, I kind of heard you guys on the podcast yesterday talk about him, and I figured I'd have to touch on him today. If you know me, I spend a lot of time in the car, and I get a little of my NFL through the fantasy world. You know, I'm always playing in fantasy leagues and watching stats or whatever. And Arthur Smith was a name that came up. And first of all, you know, his dad, you know, with FedEx, his dad just passed away in June. So, you know, condolences. Condolences or whatever. But there's been a lot of talk about how the FedEx money may be able to help Ohio State now and whatever. But he was the type of kid that he could have probably done anything he wanted in life, and he chose the path of football, which is not an easy path. You know, 14-hour days at whatever facility you're at every day of the week, grinding on the minutia is not the way most rich kids would spend their days. And he did. And he came to fame when they had the number one offense in the league in Tennessee with Derrick Henry. And that was the A.J. Brown days. And they were averaging 30 points a game. And every fantasy guy in the world thought he was a genius. And it was an RPO offense. It was a lot of college stuff that's going to transfer very well. That offense, when he went to Atlanta and they got Bijan Robinson, the fantasy people dubbed him the running back by committee guy. Like, why is Tyler Algier playing so much? And Bijan Robinson is a generational talent. Arthur Smith doesn't know what he's doing. That was the fantasy take. And then, of course, Pittsburgh is a grinded out offense where he was there to run the ball. And I think personnel hurt him this year. Aaron Rodgers at the end and DK Metcalf are not the explosive players they used to be. So his reputation has taken a little hit, but I think it's due to the personnel he's taken on. And he's a run first guy. He's an RPO guy. He's kind of a genius. This very much reminds me of Matt Patricia. Hotter than hot at one time in the NFL, white hot. And then, okay, things take a turn, whether it was Detroit for Patricia or, you know, the Steelers being last in offense or 29th in offense. There's a little shine there.
But Mark, do you feel like facial hair played any role in this? Just kidding.
No. But the fantasy skew on me is strong, and those guys had some strong opinions. And that was one of their jokes with him is, you know, but anyways, all jokes aside, you may see a revitalization because this guy's scheme and where he's been with Jeremiah Smith and Bo Jackson and this, he may be able to turn this offense and give it a little kickstart. It's not the Ryan Day and Brian Hartline offense. I don't see that from him watching. I mean, I had Derrick Henry when he was with the Titans on my fantasy team. So it's funny how like certain years you spend a lot more time watching teams that you would never watch. But I remember that offense, and it was explosive. I mean, A.J. Brown is a dog, and there's a lot of Jeremiah Smith and A.J. Brown. You know, like those are similar, strong, big guys. So he's getting DK Metcalf. You know, like he knows how to coach that type of big, strong receiver. I look for a pretty Matt Patricia-like love affair to hopefully brew with this guy.
So I asked this question of Dave yesterday. Off the top of your head, and this I'm not trying to ambush you guys, who are the 3 or 4 best players on the Steelers?
JJ, the Watt player, Hayward on defense. I think they have a secondary corner that's pretty good.
Okay.
But their offensive line was rebuilt in the last couple of years with some high draft picks, but those 2 running backs.
Time out. That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
The team MVP voted on by his teammates was Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't have Kenneth Gainwell in your fantasy league until week 4. Nobody did. And
You
if
didn't even
I
have-
did, but that's only
you're a
that's
Steelers fan or something, you know
only,
someone.
that's only because I'm in a keeper league. That's the
Okay.
only reason why.
But I'm just saying, Kenneth Gainwell is not a household name, and he's a running back in a committee and was voted team MVP by his teammates. So my guess is the running back scheme is probably pretty effective for talented players. That's one to keep on. One thing you mentioned too from earlier, and I mean, I'll get to that in terms of the drafting, but I do think that, and I said this yesterday too, college football is awesome. He is overqualified for this job. I mean, look, I hold the Buckeyes on a pedestal, man, but it's the NFL is you don't get to sleep. You know what I'm saying? Like Joe Gibbs used to live in his office, have a cot, and have cassette tapes of the night before dinner dropped off, and he would listen to them as he eat dinner the next night. College is regulated, man. You only get these guys for so many hours a week. And here's the number one thing that I think we don't take into account. The NFL talent level between teams is pretty close. If you are coaching at Ohio State, you have the best players every single game. Maybe. Will Ohio State play a game next year where the other team is more talented? Maybe.
You could argue one or two.
Pittsburgh's offense, and Dave says, spent the least amount of money in the league on their offense. So he was literally going to those games last year with the least paid offense. And another thing, do you think Aaron Rodgers was in meetings like, hey, tell me a bunch of new stuff to work on. Give me some of your new ideas because I'm so easy to get along with. And I love change. And I love doing things that other people want me to do. Come on, man.
Ryan Tannehill and Aaron Rodgers at this point, if you can make it work with those guys, saying will be just fine.
Dave had someone at the WAC told him Sam might be the best quarterback he's had.
Very possible.
Period.
Very possible.
And yeah, you can go look at the numbers, and these numbers match up. I don't want to get too goofy, but there's a lot of consternation in Philadelphia about what's the problem and why can't they hire an offensive coordinator? Go back and look at the stats of the offensive coordinators when they were somewhere, then they're in Philly, and then they're somewhere else. Hurts doesn't throw the ball in the middle of the field. It's not Kellen Moore's fault. It's not the guy who's got fired's fault. They had a bad quarterback. That's not going to be the case here. He's going to get to do things he could never do. Anyone watch the Steelers play this year? We're forced to pretty much every week.
It's like a hostage situation to watch.
Their offense was awful.
Awful.
And the running back still got MVP. So I talked way too much. Let's get to DJ Jacobs. If you want to see something tremendous. Am I guaranteeing a winning season for the Buckeyes? Yes.
Well, what does a winning season mean? If it means 7-5, 1,000%. Yes. If it means a national title season, I'll let Dan speak on that. But
they'll be in the mix for sure. There's only one program that's never taken a real dip. We took one dip when the scandal to end all scandals rocked the thing. Dave and J-Book talked about 9-3. I almost had a heart attack. No one's going 9-3 up in here, dude. Come on now. That's not happening. 9-3? No. We don't go 9-3. None of this makes any sense to me if we go 9-3. 10-2 at the worst. And I think 10-2 this year, you're still hosting a playoff game. I don't buy that for a second. Then again, it's Bucknuts. And I'm not attempting to be rational.
That's so rational for a Bucknuts announcer to say, yeah, we could lose.
Announcer. I'm the publisher, man. I know announcer's not good enough. I'm more of a homer than that.
Yeah.
No.
I'm trying to word that lightly, I guess.
Yeah, they're not going 9-3. They're not.
Okay.
Let me ask you this question. The other teams, when they get the schedule, you think they pencil a W in when they play us? No. No. At least not behind closed doors. All right. Mark, take it away. This is one of the reasons we're going to be better than a lot of people eventually is that they are recruiting some studs.
We're not nearly excited enough about this kid as a Buckeye fan base. Garrick's been kind of alluding to that. You're looking at a kid that has the prototypical body to play on the edge, 6'5", 225, long arms. This get off, it almost looks like this film's in fast forward or, been sped up. He is unbelievable. When I was slowing this down, making it, there were multiple times, I put that arrow over him where his hand is off the ground and his first step's going, and 21 other guys are still in their stance. Okay. He is a jet coming out of the edges there. This kid, I don't think it's fake. I think it's going to translate to college where he becomes this deadly as an impact player. I mean, he's aggressive. He's physical. He's mean. The body language is there. He's got the pass rush repertoire, whether it's a rip one time, a bull rush, a dip to the inside. The pursuit across the field, he looks like a safety as a blur coming across the field. He's got so much speed for a guy like that. And when he finishes, headhunter. Absolute no regard for his body. Like, I'm going to, look for a soft spot. He's coming for the kill. I mean, he was 2 yards into the backfield, and some of those kids weren't out of their stance right there. Blocking punts. Usually you have
By the way, those protectors.
Yeah,
those protectors were like, no, thank you. Yeah. Look this way and get it blocked.
I mean, like a corner comes off the edge to block a punt, not a defensive end or a linebacker, and he does that type of stuff. Outstanding looking prospect. One of those players that if we didn't have and we started hyping up, there's no way we would get him. But we got him. We can hype him up and keep him. And, boy, I mean, if this kid's as good as he looks on high school tape, I said it in the write-up. I may be drawing a blank this morning, but I don't remember doing a pass rusher like this. I almost wanted to say, remember
not with that girth.
Jadeveon Clowney? This body in that film from high school, boy, there's not much. I mean, I made the Jadeveon Clowney. We had Scouting Carolina at that time, and he was one of the first prospects we did back then.
I remember.
I'm like, wow, these kids in North Carolina are really good. He was a generational guy. So, but this has shades of a Jadeveon Clowney type presence, at least in the pass rush department. I know Jadeveon's probably a little thicker and maybe a little longer, but boy, I'll take this version.
Yeah, and I do get that everyone's like, oh, can they keep him? Can they do this? Can they do that? They kept Jeremiah Smith, despite people aggregating stuff we said that wasn't and putting bad tenses. There's no one harder to hold on to than Jeremiah Smith, okay? And he was a living legend in Florida. And by the way, there's some other interested parties in Florida who would have liked to get him. So any kid is a transfer choice or has the choice to potential to transfer. But I think Ohio State knows what they've gotten into. And Jeremiah Smith, let's just use him as like an offensive example because I think it's actually fair in this case. Jeremiah Smith is not missing any meals, okay? He's getting compensated fine. That's not an issue. And by the way, they'll be able to show him, look, you know what I'm saying? Remember the contract with blank dealership that he had? We just scratched that name out and write your name in there, and you can drive the Lamborghini SUV. So I think that's overrated. Ohio State's actually done a really good job of hanging on to the elite of the elite. Are they going to lose a few dudes? No question. Garrick, who are some of the other guys I wanted to ask you that they have committed that kind of are anecdotal proof of this? I know in Ohio they got my guy from Trotwood and Jameer Brown, who are elite top 10 guys. The fact that they got, is it Weiss?
Yeah, Jameer Weiss, yep.
The fact that they got in so early on him, so early, to me, is indicative of what you said and that they're going to really go after the clear elite players. I mean, just having Weiss and Jacobs in the fold is a coup. So, Garrick, take it from there for me.
Well, I wanted to do a quick note on Jacobs real quick to kind of back up what you guys were saying to kind of help alleviate some of this. So I'm going to be as transparent as I possibly can here. I was asked by the network a day before DJ Jacobs' commitment to kind of write like a blurb about why Ohio State might have a chance, yada, yada, yada. And I did it. And when I turned this in, I was like, well, I'm glad that I wrote this 24 hours before he picks Miami. I went to bed that night. I was like, yeah, well, I'm not really paying attention to this a whole lot, right? The day of his commitment, when he announced with CBS Sports and 247, Probably about 6 hours before the announcement went public, I got a text like, "Hey, watch for Ohio State here, right? What? They're coming." And I was like, "Huh." And at the time, I was at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas and juggling a lot of other things, but we had just gotten done with Cotton Bowl Media Day at that time. So, of course, I have like 30 thoughts in my head. Like, we just got the assistant coaches available for the first time in a long time. So we're trying to utilize the best questions and resources of allocation of the limited time we get with those guys. And then after that, I immediately sprint to my hotel room and do a little bit more digging. And then eventually I got to a point to where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to write a draft for this, because I already had a DJ Jacobs picks Miami draft. So I do it. And then I still thought it was going to be Miami until about 20 minutes before his decision. Then we're like, I think it might be, maybe. And then he told Ohio State 10 minutes before his decision he was coming to Ohio State. So anyway, that all is a antidote to say when he first committed to Ohio State, he gave quotes to other outlets like, I still am going to go through the recruiting process. I'm going to take visits to other school. I'm going to consider other avenues, right? Well, a couple of weeks later, he checks into the Polynesian Bowl and tells our national 247 sports team, I don't want to do that. I am not taking any other visits except to Ohio State. I'm as locked in as you could possibly be, almost a year out to National Signing Day. Now, could something change that? I mean, it's modern recruiting, so you never know. But I always maintain it is a lot harder to flip the top 25 guys in a given year in any recruiting class than it is to flip 26 through 275, whatever, because of the amount of resources and commitment that are involved in getting this guy to commit to you in the first place. So do I think that DJ Jacobs will stick? I would say, yeah. I would even put it higher than 50%. I'm not going to go as high as 100 or 90 or anything like that, because, it's the modern recruiting world, and I won't do that for anybody, let alone the number one prospect in the country that's going to have no shortage of suitors call him until December 4th or whatever the date is this year. But, yeah, we just lead for him right now. I guess to an extent that's true. But, again, when you're talking about the top 25 guys and he's already saying I'm locked in, I'm staying with Ohio State. Now, could that change in March and he takes official visits to other schools? Sure. I mean, who knows? But to wrap this up and to go back to what Dan was saying, Ohio State usually does not miss retaining its top commitments, and other schools have not had a lack of effort of trying to flip them. And you wanted me to go into other guys. Jameer Brown is another perfect example. In recent months, teams have smelled blood in the water with Brian Hartline leaving. Oregon and Miami have been trying to flip Ohio State wide receiver commitments forever until the end of time. They tried it with Chris Henry. They tried it with Jeremiah Smith. They're going to keep trying with other wide receivers, and they're trying with Jameer Brown. And this is probably the year that they think they can do it, because Brian Hartline isn't that safety net for Ohio State, if you will, that they've always had. Like, yeah, well, if Brian Hartline's there, good luck flipping him, guys. Well, okay, he's not there. But you also have to remember that Jameer Brown is from an hour away in Dayton and is moving closer to play at Big Walnut and will be even closer to Ohio State's campus. So he's going to be a hop, skip, and a jump away from campus. And this is also a guy that has the Block O tattooed on his arm. Not saying that means he's 100% in and he's not going to take visits to Miami and Oregon and all that stuff like that, especially, hey, I would like a free trip to Miami too if I was a recruit, just saying. But, I mean, Cortez Hankton has already done a great job of prioritizing keeping Jameer Brown in this class. He's already visited Ohio State and has met with him since Cortez Hankton has been hired. It's not one that, I probably should be more skeptical than I am of Ohio State retaining wide receivers, but I've gone through this so many years in a row.
Not Jameer, though.
No, yeah, I know. Like, I've gone through this so many years in a row. First Jeremiah, then Chris Henry Jr. Like, oh, the end is near. They're going to flip. And then especially Ryan Day able to maintain Chris Henry Jr. in a 3-day window that couldn't have been more chaotic if it tried. And you had to make a decision immediately within those 72 hours. And they retained a national recruit like that. yeah, it makes me pretty confident that they're going to end up retaining Jameer Brown in the end. And yeah, Jameer Weiss, I'll get out of the way and let Mark talk a little bit more about him. But 6'4", 270-pound defensive tackle that has a frame you can dream on right away. Rated the number 7 prospect and number 1 defensive lineman in the entire country for the 2028 recruiting class. Yeah, they got this kid early. They prioritized him. Like you said, Dan, if you prioritize an in-state kid from Ohio, they don't often leave, especially if the commitment to them is there. And yeah, Mark, what do you see?
No, let's before you. I want to touch on this before, and Mark can take it and run with it. One, DJ Jacobs in Ohio State, I think it's fair to assume have had financial talks.
Sure.
So this is not like he's trying to join Old Town High. He knows how much he's going to get. 2, I know everyone thinks agents are the shadiest people on earth, but it does not do the agent well for future clients if he's going to these big schools, signing guys off on them, and then coming back and telling them he's not coming. There's going to be relationships burnt on that. The agent's got to sign new guys too. And if you start telling people we're not dealing with, it's all going to turn into the NFL. That's what we're doing here. So your agent has a vested interest in this too, right? So he needs to have a relationship with the schools as well. It's not a one-way street. I'm sorry, Mark. Take it and run with it on my guy Weiss.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, Weiss. First week 1, that's who I went to see. Let's see what the hype is about this kid. And he played offensive line and defensive line. If you asked me, could he be a college offensive lineman? Yes. He looked very good that night playing tackle. He's got power. He's got feet. Defensively, right now, he's kind of in between the run stuffer and penetrator. There's clips of him really blowing things up. But he was starting as a freshman. It was first game of his sophomore year. So the window I have into him is a very young window. He's going to blow up to be a big-time guy. The Ohio State did a great job of wrapping their arms around a young kid in Ohio early. And, this is their, I guess, game plan for all the kids like this. Be in early. The earlier you can get, now that I'm watching this recruiting, the timeline of it, most of these other national teams aren't looking at young Ohio players. They're looking at the current class of 2027, but they're not 2028 or 2029. And that's where Ohio State's always going to have an edge on those couple no-brainers that pop up early. They'll make their call and offer them and kind of, end the game before the game begins, so to speak. Never let Jameer Weiss go and enjoy all these trips and whatever. Just pay him well, take care of him, keep him home.
And you got things like the Glenville pipeline,
Yep.
Other wonderful recruiting advantages, and a chance to win the national championship every year and get drafted very high in the draft. It still matters a lot. I will hold this till I die. It still matters a lot if you can get them into the first round. And it's proven at Ohio State that you're going to have a chance to do that and make some real money. In fact, I think it was ESPN, might even been NFL, did a thing where what positions in the NFL should be assigned to each program based on production this year. And Ohio State was wide receiver U and defensive line U. Not a bad place to start. So, and not a bad place to finish. We appreciate everybody stopping by. We got deep there. Have a good one.